Crochet, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the crochet architect. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new stitches, to seek out new patterns and techniques, to boldly go where no crocheter has gone before.
Do you love the thermal stitch, but you don't know how to change colors and carry those colors up the side? Hi, I'm Susan Lohman, the Crochet Architect. I'd like to teach you how to change colors in thermal stitch today. So let's get started. I've got 3 pot holders here, and as you can see, this one and this one are worked with just 1 skein of yarn, but this one is worked with 2 skeins of yarn. So how do you change colors on these, and how do you make your edge so that you don't see the other color so much as you carry it up? Because you don't want to be cutting your yarn at the end of every section of color. That would be way too many ends to weave in, and nobody likes to weave in ends, especially me. So when I did this pot holder, I knew what the weight of my leftovers was from each of these skeins, because I actually got all 3 pot holders from 2 skeins of yarn, and I believe they were the 2-ounce size of the worsted weight cotton. So I weighed what I had left over, and I weighed these, and I knew that I had enough combined to make this one, but I had less of the light color, so I did less rows of the light color than I did the rows of the dark color. I have 12 rows of dark and 8 rows of light on here for 20 rows total. And you know, in thermal stitch, it's 1 row across and 1 row back. So what I'm saying is there's 20 rows on each side. So there's actually a total of 40 rows. So each of these weighs about 40 grams. And I have some other yarn that I wanted to use, and I weighed this with my handy little scale, and I'm weighing in grams instead of ounces because it is more accurate. You can get more accurate weights by doing grams. And I have this other yarn left over that I thought these would go nicely together because of the peach in here, the pale peach, and this is a dark peach. And this was just sitting around, which was a swatch before, so I have lots of yards of this, lots of weight, but this one I only have 25 grams. And since it's going to take 40 grams for the hot pad with both colors, I have plenty for my 15 grams here. But I may or may not have enough to do my 12 rows of my dark color. If I feel like I don't, I could change up some of this and do 1 row here and 2 rows there. So just changing up the stripe pattern a little bit, and you can figure out how to get the most use out of the yarn that you have. But I'm ready now for my color change, which is really what I want to teach you today. I had a request for this, and I actually had it on my list of videos to make, so I moved it to the top of my list. And I have 2 rows on each side worked with my solid, and I'm ready for my last stitch of my solid, which is where we change colors. Just like in regular crochet, any time that you want to change colors, you work your last stitch, but you don't finish it. You start it, but you don't finish it. Since this is single crochet, I pulled up my 1 loop, and I'm ready for my last yarn over and pull through. So I'm going to take my contrasting color here, my lighter one, and I'm going to finish my stitch by pulling through. And then I can chain 1 and turn. Now, if you don't know how to work thermal stitch without changing colors, go ahead and watch my video on that to learn that first, before you learn to change colors. So here's my chain in my new color, and I've turned. And what we need to do in order to carry the unused color up the side without it being seen is we need to drape it from the back to the front over our work on the edge, and we need to work our first stitch encasing that yarn right in there. And we can carry our tail in here as well and work over that. But we're not going to be working over this yarn across the row. We're simply keeping it on the edge here. So we're ready to work our first single crochet, not working over this, but keeping it at the edge. And we'll go through our first stitch, both loops, around this carried yarn for our tail, and we can work across that tail all across the row until the tail is all woven in there. And you won't see the tail on here. You don't have to weave in the tail, you can work over it across the row. And I'm not going to work this whole row. I'll do one more stitch and then I'm going to turn, and we will pretend that I've gone all the way across the row, and I will come back and I'll show you what to do with this yarn again. So we need to do our stitches coming back, and when we get to the end, then we can decide whether we're going to carry that yarn up again or if we're going to change colors. If we're going to change colors, then my yarn is right here ready for my last yarn over, but I'm going to carry it up again. I will just leave it there and work my last single crochet and my chain one, and then I will drape it over here again. Now I want to point out something. You want to have your yarn like this and drape it over first before you work your stitch. So that yarn is under the working yarn right here. And then you work your next stitch, and that yarn gets carried up the side. And you have this little tiny blip of color, but it's very less noticeable than it would be if you carried it another way. So it's just going up the edge. And we'll go ahead and finish this short row. We'll call them short rows. We'll just do 5 stitches and come back the other way, and then we'll change colors again. And I'll carry my light color up the edge instead of my dark color. And then we can look a little bit closer at it again and see that the yarn is carried up the edge inside of the pot holder and it's not seen. Now make sure when you do your last stitch that you're not grabbing that carried yarn. But here I will go ahead and change colors, and my carried yarn is right there ready to change my color. I can chain one and turn, and I also like to tug on this a little bit so that this last stitch doesn't get too tall. So we're going to turn our work, and we're going to carry our unused color right here in the middle. So we can drape it over our chain to keep it out of the way and work our row across. And this is how you carry your yarn. As you can see, it's barely visible in here. And we'll do that over and over. Whenever we're getting to the end of the row, we drape that yarn over. If we're changing colors, we drape the other yarn over that we used to be using. So let's look at the edge of this pot holder. And this is where I changed colors on this edge. And you can barely see that carried yarn here and there. It doesn't stand out a whole lot. I think this one I may have done incorrectly, but when I did it correctly, it's barely visible. And of course this edge is just where you've gone down and come back. So all of the color changing was on this edge, which is the edge where the hanging loop is. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to change colors in thermal stitch. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my crochet videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and happy thermal stitch crocheting to all of you. Work a double border to cover them up. You don't have to turn them into fringe, and blah, 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 blah.
Okay, one more time. Just say something.
With feeling.
Crochet. Crochet. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the crochet architect. To explore strange new stitches. Yeah, that was right, wasn't it?